Hi Mimma, how are you doing?
Hi, Georgie. I'm very well. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Excited to talk about kind of Fashion Week thus far with you.
Yeah,
Um,
going to Milan today,
into
right?
Milan, we've just
Mhm.
wrapped up London. It's been quite an interesting week, I think. I mean, if this is the first time it felt like everything is kind of back to normal, aside from a few COVID passes here and there. We still have a few digital shows, but for the majority, this really felt like back to the way things were.
Yeah, I think the digital shows were because people have chosen to, or they like the medium, or it's less costly. I think mostly costly in time and people involved, and so it's now more of a choice. It's true that it felt like Fashion Week as we've known it for many, many, many years. It was good though. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it was really good. I was like kind of pleasantly surprised, but again, I can't tell if that's just because I'm excited about the fact that we're back into the swing of things for real this time. But there's some definite kind of overarching themes this season. Some of them were quite have been kind of creeping in on us for a few seasons past, like this kind of exposed flesh we've been seeing for a while, lots of cutouts, remapping the body. But one that I was kind of pleased to see is that a lot more designers are using dead stock fabrics.
Yeah, I
Even
about that.
even less shouting about them, but just kind of subtly that it was just happening, you know?
It's so true what you say, and it's funny. I was thinking about that when I was reviewing a few things this morning. It's becoming, thank God, natural. It's mentioned by the reviewer. It's mentioned in some show notes, but it's just a thing now, like that stock fabrics or even repurposed garments, like Bethany Williams is one of the pioneering of those in London, and she finally closed the week with that. And the most incredible thing is that we were hit by this big storm during London. We were going out to shows with umbrellas flying out of our hands, and we were reminded of what's going on. So it was quite a funny dichotomy happening
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought up Bethany because I think her collection was really, really something. And she presented in such an interesting way. Kind of, she had a rack on the top floor of the design museum, but then in the middle kind of floor of the design museum, everything was laid out like an exhibition, kind of key pieces and references. It was just such a lovely way to do it. It felt very true to Bethany. And I'm really pleased that she's kind of shifted a slight bit so that there's still those beautiful, almost couture like art pieces where she collaborates with the artists. But this season, I felt like there was a lot more accessible pieces. And I use the word accessible in a super high fashion luxury term because I know
But
that
was wearable.
accessible and wearable, because I know that £1,000 jumper is not accessible for
Yeah.
most, but it felt a lot more wearable, a lot more digestible. And even though I joke about the price point, that has come down as well. So I think it's working a lot smarter this season, which was really, really lovely to see.
Yeah, I think Bethany, and we will touch upon others, is one of those very clever and very talented designers that started off by bringing forward more their ideology or what they stand for. She's probably one of the real social enterprises in the industry, but then understood that if you don't sell clothes, if you don't see your clothes on people, it doesn't matter, you can't have an impact. And she's doing this incredibly well. Her collections are going for strength to strength. They're not only a message and a manifesto anymore, but they are actual very beautiful and modern and relevant and upcycled and repurposed clothes that we and young people want to wear. So kudos to Bethany. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Ahluwalia's one as well. I think her collection, she uses dead stock. I thought this collection was one of her absolute best. In working with the women's wear, I know she started in menswear, but the women's wear, this collection really sang for me. I think she's just progressing on another level.
Yeah, I love one of the things that she is known for, this marriage of two cultures. She comes from Africa and India at the same time, her and this Bollywood with Nollywood. It was a sort of a wink to something that could be very interesting. These people are natives of social climate crises, and so they just do things normally with that, and that's fantastic to see.
There's even a few names I've got written down here from New York, which I find quite surprising, like Altuzarra, obviously GABRIELA HEARST we know and love. But like, it's quite fun that it's, I don't know why New York is the final frontier in my mind, but I feel like once it's infiltrated New York, it's infiltrated the industry.
Well, you're right to say, because as we know, New York is very, again, commercial, meaning that they actually sell clothes. And so if it infiltrates that, it will infiltrate people's wardrobes, and that's good. I think talking about Altuzarra with Peter Du, that I cannot stop loving. With
amazing.
But Altuzarra was one of the best collections of New York for me, and also one of his best collections to date. And it's funny because it comes after his divorce for a big group, not to mention KANE. And as you can see, you know, when people find their freedom again, sometimes it's better. Maybe it's harder to, you know, pay the bills and functions, but it's better for their creativity. And as for Gabriela Hearst, who I love and admire, and I, you know, she's very honest, again, you know, a little bit like Bethany, she's very sincere in what she stands for. My only problem with her is that I can't distinguish Chloe and Gabriela Hearst now. And I think
I was going to say the same thing,
that she will have to solve, because you can't do, you know, two collections with two different names and not really distinguish them.
Yeah, they're homogenizing a little bit too much there, I think. But yeah, you're quite right. I wanted to go back to something you said about kind of celebrating ethnicity and heritage, because there's that to me feels very intrinsic to London Fashion Week. That's something we do very well. We celebrate ourselves and our heritage. And Saul Nash, one of them, was kind of had his Guyanese heritage literally kind of plastered across jumpers, and I thought that was so lovely. And I was really pleased that he was using these kind of beautiful, fine kind of cashmere knits. So I'm so used to seeing Saul Nash be these high performance nylons and, you know, kitted out for dancers, but instead we had these super spelt, fine knits on kind of catsuit styles, which I thought was brilliant. We've got a bit of heritage there, but also this idea of exploring new fabrics, which was definitely commonplace in London as well.
Yeah, I think he is the living proof of, you know, what we've been calling streetwear or sportwear or whatever you want to call it, going higher, going in luxury, and so using luxurious material and showing us that it's just fashion and they can do it, you know. And I mean, again, Saul Nash for me is a great, great human being, even more than a designer, because he's sincere. And I can feel the honesty in what he does and what he stands for. And, you know, just to see him coming out and dancing, which is what he does, you know, and jumping up and down, it was really, really a pleasure to see. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about that kind of new move into new materials, because a lot of designers are coming and playing with different textures than they usually do. We saw it at Nensi the other day. There was lots of velvets and kind of ribbed cottons. That's unusual. We saw velvets at Simone as well. And obviously there's Chet Lowe, who plays with this kind of crazy spiky nylon. I felt like there was lots of really interesting textures going on at London this
yeah
week.
I think it was the season of, it started in New York, of velvet, latex, velvet and latex together. Knit is not going anywhere, as you told me the other day, and you were absolutely right. And knit and latex and velvet together. So I think these are the three star materials, and you know, the Nensi Dojaka sexy sheer is now everywhere. I mean, she obviously launched that trend of lingerie chic or lingerie as evening wear, and the smart woman and talented woman, she showed that that's not only for skinny types, but it goes on other types of body. And she managed, as you just said, to add new materials and new textures into that without ever going against her signature that she, I repeat, created. She launched, she didn't invent it, but she made it into a trend. And I think she's another example of you know, young designer going far and going there to stay. By the way, what impresses me with Nensi is that we talk about Nensi as if she were one of the big. She's been around like what, 3 seasons, 4 seasons? She's not even 30. And she could be compared to the big of Paris and Milan. She is just incredible. You know, the big ones in London now are the extraordinary Molly and Simone Rocha. But then Nensi is up there with them, and she was still in school when they were already famous and successful. And I think she is a phenomenon to reckon with in the whole industry all over the world.
I think you're definitely right. She's got such a wise head on her shoulders that just permeates throughout her designs.
And she's humble and understated, and it's like, oh, you know, it's like, oh, no, but that was easy. Oh, but that's normal. You know, it's just so fantastic to see her, to follow her journey, you know, to follow her path.
Definitely. I think she kind of, as you say, she set this trend with the sheers, the straps, the layerings, which we've seen in a few other designers in London and obviously across all the other major cities. But I found it quite interesting to see the sheer in places I didn't expect. So, like, for example, Simone had kind of huge, like, exposing the belly button with sheers. And I was like, that
royal blue gown, that was a standout piece.
It was really surprising for me for Simone to have. There is something kind of inherently seductive about Simone, but it's not explicitly sexy, whereas I found it quite fun to have Simone doing these sheers and seeing little bit pops of navel, and I guess that is partly inspired by the Nensi effect, or just this general wave of wanting to show a bit of skin, and there's a lot of skin.
I must notice also that I really love Molly Goddard show, because she's another one who's very cleverly is able to move forward with what she created, because also Molly 10 years ago, how long ago, she reinvented the dress for the young woman, a different way of wearing a dress. And now she managed to make them more wearable to a different generation of women, you know, a different kind of bodies, and mixing them with knit that I think in certain looks were literally attached. So it was like a dress, half knit and half tutu, whatever material. And it was very fun. It was very good. It was, you know, like evening on the bottom and day on the top. And I thought it was really, really clever, you know, also commercially speaking, because let's face it, if you don't sell, you don't exist. So
exactly. I think she's always very clever in that she subverts it slightly, and it's the blueprint is the same, but there's always something tweaked. And for me, I love the slightly like off-kilter shoes that felt like boxing shoes, but with these like gorgeous frou-frou dresses, and then this kind of crazy 80s school disco hair. I just love that slight, there's always something that's like, oh, don't know how I feel about that with this kind of saccharine pink or this mint green.
Can we mention the great comeback, you know, like Craig Greens and Christopher Kane made two very beautiful and very important appearances in this fashion week.
Yeah, I was very pleased to see both of them back on the schedule.
Worth it, right?
Craig Green is just, I mean, just phenomenal, really. There's something so special about what he does, and the color palettes he chooses, the textures, the just way there's always something moving, always something emoting. Just always hits me. There was one look that it was kind of blink and you'll miss it because there was so many, which was kind of burgundy and mint. And I thought that colorway for Craig, I don't know why, but that just felt so brilliant.
He's a magician in coloring, you know, he's one of those designers that, but I also think, you know, he's another one that never goes against his signature, but manages to bring it forward and making it still relevant and always more relevant. And
just like Christopher Kane.
And they're still copied, and there's still big reference for young students. Christopher Kane, I absolutely adore also the way he presented it, you know, with these images, with these strong colors, background colors. And, you know, once you're not too much distracted by that did distract me. I rewatched it and I thought there were some extraordinary pieces.
Let's talk about Raf.
You know, in the last roundup that we did, I said that I absolutely love Raf Simons and I absolutely love Miuccia. I don't think they were the best together, and I think what Raf showed during London Fashion Week is evidence of this. He showed an extraordinary collection. There were some hints of what I think he's learned. I mean, saying learn from Raf is a little bit hard because it, you know, he's master, but something that he acquired by working at Prada. You know, there were some, not Prada nylon, but it was like latex in, you know, steroids, and it was so good. You know, his big coats and his great ideas that are giving us amazing fashion and great colors and great materials, and the way, I repeat, has he used latex, and he's so good alone and she is so good alone. Why do they need to work together?
Do you find that when you see the collection, you're just more frustrated? Like, this is this is so much better.
This is so much better, and I don't want to forget how both of them are not only great designers but very important for fashion. Even if they're a little bit older than the one we mentioned before, but they are still there, and they should be examples and, you know, references and inspiration. And that show, I mean, not many people have mentioned it, but we can't forget that the Raf Simons show during London Fashion Week was really great.
It was really great. I think, as you say, I spotted a few kind of Miu Miu-isms almost, where I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I can see
trickled in.
See some mutual, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't get the same kind of gut-wrenching feeling like, oh my God, why are you working together? Because I don't think I have the same level of disdain for Prada with Raf as you do. However, I think there's absolutely some truth in watching Raf and just saying this kind of pure version is just so refreshing. And this collection as well, I felt was just like I mean, most Raf collections are a checklist of Rafisms, but this felt particularly, you know, graphic prints, broad shouldered coats, big chunky boots, the kind of riff on the riding helmet. I was like, yeah. Everything you want to see in a Raf show and more, I think. I also wanted to talk about kind of this, there was a few designers that kind of used tech in a big way. Like ROKSANDA worked with the lovely team at IODF to create this NFT version of her dress, which was wild. And I kept seeing kind of lots of people using a filter or trying it on, which for me, I love.
I didn't like ROKSANDA's collection, which I usually do. All that Fila collaboration wasn't for me, especially because, as you say, you know, she's these romantic, beautiful, feminine, elegant gowns. And I don't know, sometimes I feel, but I'm a little bit conservative in this. I'm not in life, I'm in this, but I feel that people should continue their line of, you know, but I really love the Edward Crutchley collection. I think there were some suits that were just so incredible, and some beautiful artwork. I mean, yes, I didn't know about his technological experience, but I did love the collection very much.
I want to go back to ROKSANDA because I think it's important what you said about knowing her as this romantic designer with the beautiful free-flowing dresses, because I think in the world we're in now, where everything was from SUPRIYA LELE to Nensi to Maximilian at Fashion East to, you know, even Ed Crutchley is cut out or strap or skin or flesh or small or halter. Brands like ROKSANDA are all the more important because we need that juxtaposition of, it can't all be, you know, strappy, naughty Y2K references. And I think that's almost ROKSANDA's moment to shine, is to say, you know, I have this is my USP. And I feel like,
I agree, but I think, you know, we have others, as we said before, Simone and Molly. And I agree with what you're saying about ROKSANDA. It was just not for me, it just didn't work in this collection. But I still do think she's an important designer. She's essential to the London scene and very talented. This time, was miss. Yeah, I mean, you always need some misses. And that was one. Talking about another miss, if I can. SUPRIYA LELE, I just don't understand, didn't like.
I find that quite interesting because she's one of the most hyped designers on the schedule. Victoria Beckham was at her show. I think I agree, actually. I didn't relate to this collection as much as I usually do. The outerwear I kind of like, the funnel necks, the dropped hem coats, but aside from those two aspects,
when you talk and you go into detail, then I can see, and I'm, you know, I agree. As you know, I look at the weeks and at the shows more as a general thing, you know, as the language, me being a communicator, the language that it speaks to me. And this one, like for me, the ROKSANDA this time didn't speak the right language. And but yes, of course, I mean, all of them have great pieces that I might even end up wearing. I cannot wait any longer to speak about my darling of the week, who is Charles Jeffrey, and he's moving with this LOVERBOY fashion meets music creation, you know, and I think it was, you know, between him and Craig Green, they were extraordinary omen for, you know, for London creativity and for showing what people are able to do here. I think Charles saying, I'm a creative person, I have so much to give, I have, you know, I can see colors and music and I can put everything together, so why not creating, you know, composing at the same time. And I thought that was very, very, very interesting. And his collection with these little music motifs that become, you know, motifs of his fabrics, and you know, the music installation and the players and the notes and the noises. The name of the collection, The Art of Noise, I thought it was really, really, really brilliant.
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned Craig and Charles in the same kind of sentence, because to me, they both have this really 360 way of approaching fashion, and they kind of curate this whole world, this whole narrative, and they both have such different aesthetics, different vibes. I mean, they are very different designers, but I can see that Charles has, you know, this cave of literary references, music references, images, scrapbooks, such beautiful kind of 360 curation. And Craig has very similar, you know, slightly more cerebral and less tangible research and kind of 360 creation of that piece. But there is something there.
But they not only these fashion designers, they are creative people, and they're reading and avid watchers and readers and listeners. And I love that, you know, whenever I talk to young people, I tell them, have your eyes and ears open to the world, and that's what will inform your creativity. And they do it, you know, and others that we will discuss in Milan and Paris. And I think you see the difference, you know, and I am very optimistic for the journey of the new fashion because of all of this.
I think there's such a like refreshing like expansion of all these designers' minds, but also it does feel like it I don't want it to sound like we need the fanfare, we need the showstoppers, we need the kind of glitz and glamour for us to fall in love with something, because it's not that. It's the back work, it's the iceberg. You know, we see this, we're presented with this gorgeous, fantastically cut, fantastically made tip of the iceberg. But what we love and what makes it such an interesting iceberg is this huge kind of submerged reference point underneath. So I don't want viewers to think that we want kind of the fanfare and the pop and we don't need a huge stage presence. And I think we saw that at Fashion East. You know, we're so used to having this kind of crazy immersive things throwing in the air and, you know, whatever. And actually that was reduced right down to really beautifully cut clothes. And then once you like take the lid off, there's all these fantastic references and ideas. And that's what makes me really excited about.
Well, it shows that creativity comes from, you know, a melting pot. You know, I can really see the pot, as you say, you know, you gestured it, of different moments in life and time and culture and you know, yeah, and also there's always a big influence from the street, so what these people see outside of their window, and that's very much it, and it's great.
I think that's a good note to end on, though, this kind of wonderful world of creativity that we get to work and live in. I really can't wait to see what Milan and Paris has to offer for us. I'm very excited.
Yeah, in Milan, there will be also the return of two big ones, you know, Bottega and Gucci, and it will be interesting to see. You know, Milan has fewer young creative and more, you know, big titans, but it will be interesting to see how they as well, you know, not living in oh, by the way, Bottega is a new designer, but to see how them as well, not living in a grotto, they will be influenced by, you know, all these young, amazing people we just talked about.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Until then, Mimma, so lovely to speak to you.
Till then, Georgie. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.